This screencast is going to continue with one last note about the Italian campaign. There was one especially heroic group, and you may know them as the Tuskegee Airmen. They were actually members of an all-black pilot group who fought in the Air Force, and they were incredibly successful in their combat during the battles within Italy, and they were very successful against the German Luftwaffe. So they will be honored and decorated heavily for their successes in battle, and it's just, even though the military was segregated, it's awesome to still honor those successful minority groups who did fight heroically. And that's the Tuskegee Airmen. And now we will transition to D-Day, which you more commonly maybe have heard of. Well, you've probably heard it as D-Day more commonly, but it's also known as Operation Overlord or the invasion of Normandy. So now that we have successfully defeated Italy, it's time to go after Germany, but in order to do so, we need to liberate our friends in France. France has been occupied by Germany for a large part of this war, and now it's time to successfully rescue them. I will say there is some geography involved in this part of the lesson, so if you get confused, please do some Googling to look at a map of Europe and a map of northern France in particular. So the big three is going to refer to the three main leaders of the Allied countries who are predominantly fighting in this war. Those three countries are the Soviet Union, Great Britain, and the United States. And so those three leaders are Joseph Stalin, Winston Churchill, and Franklin Roosevelt. They will meet at the Tehran Conference to discuss their plans to free France before it happens. And in these discussions, they decide that they're going to make Dwight Eisenhower the overall commander of the Allied forces for this operation. And they then decide that they are going to target the specific beaches of Normandy, France. And this is in the sense of when I say, they're going to have to invade France to eventually kick the Germans out. So where are they going to target their invasion? They're going to target the region of Normandy, which is like northwestern France. Now there's going to be some fun Hollywood tricks here because they're going to convince the Germans that they're going to invade actually a different location than Normandy. The area that they try to convince Germany that they're actually going to target is written on your screen, Pas de Calais, but I don't actually need you to know that. I need you to know they are going to actually target Normandy, but they want the Germans to think they're targeting Pas de Calais to kind of get Germany to move more of its defense lines in the wrong direction to kind of make it easier for the Allies. And just so you know, they're going to use some Hollywood tricks. If you actually Google inflated tank, like in your Google image search, I'll have a slide with pictures on my PowerPoint as well, but it's really cool. They basically have all these dummy tanks, dummy planes, and they set it all out closer to the Pas de Calais side of the English Channel, which they're going to cross to make it from Great Britain onto French soil. So they have all these like dummy fake supplies on one side of the British coastline to make Germany think they would rather target Pas de Calais instead of Normandy. So the pictures are pretty cool to see. You can't really pick up a tank by any means, but there's pictures of like 4 men holding these tanks because it's all filled with air. It's all fake. Okay. So we're also going to need a new type of boat in this invasion process because we're going to need a boat that is quote-unquote amphibious and can kind of get really close to the French beaches, like kind of ride up from the ocean onto the beaches so that soldiers can get out and immediately start fighting. And the boats that are created are called Higgins Boats because they are named after Andrew Jackson Higgins, the kind of creator or inventor, engineer. And these boats actually come out of New Orleans. The boats are created by Higgins, who is from New Orleans, and they're produced out of New Orleans, which is actually the reason why we have the World War II Museum in New Orleans, because it used to be the National D-Day Museum. All right. The date of this attack is going to be the third date that I need you to know for this unit, and actually the last, and that is June 6th, 1944, and that is the date that the D-Day invasion is going to be launched. There are two elements here. There are paratroopers that are going to be dropped out of planes and in parachutes, they're going to be dropped by the Allies a little further into France. And then, of course, you're going to have the boats transport large amounts of soldiers across the English Channel to invade France by sea. Here are some pictures. Here's an example of one of those dummy tanks I was talking about. It's all filled with air. It's all fake, but it looks pretty real, pretty cool. Here is just a map of the part of Normandy that is going to be targeted. Notice the Canadian flag, because the Canadians actually, even though they're not part of the Big Three, they do help us in this operation. These are the Higgins boats I was talking about that kind of can drive onto more beach, more shallowed waters. Now, unfortunately, D-Day was met with some problems because the ships, it says, the ships didn't make it quite to the beaches. They were not able to go as far onto the land because of the weather as they wanted to, so it's kind of choppy and it's hard for the soldiers to make it onto actual land when they get off of the boats. They have to wade through the water a little bit. And the seas were just, choppy, so they're kind of feeling nauseated from being seasick. And they're also being met with heavy fire by the Germans. But despite that, the Allies will be able to gain control of the Normandy beach. And after about a week of fighting, they will own enough, control enough of the beach that they have like an 80-mile stretch or so of land within France. And then within a month of that, they're able to land 1 million troops and tons of supplies, including military vehicles, so that they are completely able to liberate France. And within just a couple of months, about 2 to 3 months, about 3, I'll say, they were able to completely liberate both France and Belgium from Nazi control. The last note we'll talk about really quickly is one last battle that will take place, kind of Hitler's last-ditch effort in order to hold off the Allies, but it will be unsuccessful. Basically, right after D-Day, after the liberation of both France and Belgium, the Allies are actually able to capture their first town in Germany. And Hitler's now, he has to give it one last shot because he's about to lose it completely. He has one last desperate attempt to try to push back into Belgium. And he focuses all his forces on one part of the defense lines for the Allies. He pushes into those enemy lines, and because of that, it creates this bulge in the line of the Allies' defense, which is why this battle is going to be called the Battle of the Bulge. Now, the whole battle will take about a month, and while Germany was able to make an initial cut in our lines of defense, we pushed back, and eventually Germany's on the losing side as we push further into German territory. And unfortunately for them, in the process, they had lost a lot of their equipment, resources, and troops. So pretty much after this battle, Germany has nothing left to do but retreat. And we will pick up with the remainder of these notes in class on Monday before our quiz. Please write down any questions you have, and I hope you have a fantastic weekend.